The idea that our research that we do in the academic lab can be translated and help people and then potentially be the first treatment for this very terrible disease that is made in Quebec or made in Canada. It's absolutely thrilling to just think about it. And hopefully we'll have the support from the Canadian ecosystem to continue our activities towards that goal.
Welcome to NGBiLab, a podcast about innovators and disruptors who are creating the next generation of companies in Canadian life sciences. Hi, I'm Jim Wilson, and my guest today is Martin Levesque, who is president and co-founder of Cerebro Therapeutics in Quebec City. Cerebro is a biotech company working on a disease-modifying treatment for neurodegenerative disorders. Their primary focus is Parkinson's, and the team at Cerebro Therapeutics is not working on a treatment that will manage symptoms. They're focused on preventing the disease from advancing. Martin Levesque is a professor at Laval University, and the idea for his company grew directly out of his research lab. Cerebro Therapeutics has been funded in part by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. They have their first angel investment in place, and when we spoke, they were in the midst of another raise that would help them get to the next level of development. Before we get to my conversation with Martin, we'd like to remind our listeners this podcast is part of the NGBi podcasts in support of Next Great Big Ideas, Canada's Life Sciences Summit. NGBi is a national networking event for all members of Canada's life sciences community, and we invite you to check out what is happening at this year's NGBi Summit by visiting nextgreatbigideas.com. This episode of NGBiLab was recorded in May 2026. Martin, welcome to NGBiLab.
Thanks for the invitation.
My pleasure. I am really looking forward to learning more about your company. We were chatting earlier before we started recording that we met at a Capital BioVentures online event.
Yeah, it was the ASCEN program. At the end of ASCEN program, we had a pitch competition where you heard me pitch.
And you won.
Yeah, exactly. We've been lucky to be selected by the judges as the best presentation.
Yeah, belated congratulations. You are the president and co-founder of Cerebro Therapeutics, and I would appreciate you explaining to our listeners what the company is all about. What problem is it you're trying to solve?
Yeah, Cerebro, we're developing a disease-modifying treatment for neurodegenerative diseases. What it means is we're trying not only to treat symptoms of the neurodegenerative diseases, but we are trying to make treatments that actually block the development of these diseases. Because so far, there's no cure for none of them. It's very problematic. We treat these diseases with the same medication that have been developed in the 60s. For example, for Parkinson, this is our primary focus. It's Parkinson's disease. And the drug that is given only alleviates symptoms. And it's been developed in the 60s. And it's still the same drug that we're giving to patients.
So we're treating the symptoms, not the cause.
Exactly. It's Cerebro is what we try to develop treatment that attack the root cause of the disease and prevent the further development of the disease. We cannot go back in time because it's a neurodegenerative disease. So it means that neurons are degenerate. We cannot replace them. There's also a whole bunch of therapy that can involve regenerative medicine by replacing neurons. But in our case, we're talking more about something that will stop or halt the disease progression.
Well, I look forward to doing a deeper dive there. You did your PhD at University of Laval in Quebec City and a postdoc at, is it the Cerveau Brain Research Center?
No, actually, it's where I had my academic affiliation. So I did exactly my PhD at Laval University and then a first postdoc in Montreal at l'Institut de Recherche Clinique de Montréal. And then a second postdoc in London, in UK, at what's called now the Crick Institute. But it was called back then the National Institute for Medical Research. And then I came back to an academic position at Laval University, where I'm also a professor and the Faculty of Medicines. And I have my academic lab and also the Cerebro is a spin-off from my academic lab.
Okay, so you're still at Laval?
Yeah, I'm still at Laval.
So the idea for the company came out of the research, obviously, that you're doing.
Exactly. So it was a research. The main focus right now of Cerebro is about Parkinson's. I'll tell you a bit more in a moment what we're developing. But this project was funded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. It's about an immunotherapy combined with gene therapy, so to block disease progression.
Okay. And you are one of the co-founders of the company. How many other co-founders are there?
Yeah, so there's two other professors, Samer Hussein and Claude Gravel. These are two professors at Laval with complementary expertise. Claude Gravel has expertise in gene therapy, development of AAV vector, whereas Samer is more on the omic side, developing cell model. So we test our therapy in animal, but also with human organoids, where it is the stem cell derived models to study disease. Try to get the most relevant model as possible for our research.
And when was the company founded?
It was founded in 2022, and progress, when you have an academic lab and on the side, well, it's not, the company becomes more and more important, but you have to run two jobs at the same time. So it initially started a bit slow, but now it's kicking off quite well. And then we're quite happy with the progression of Cerebro.
So how did the idea for the company come up? Was it a serendipitous bump into one another over a coffee, or walk me through that?
Yeah. So the idea was, during all my academic career so far, when you do research, you have results, it's interesting, you make publications, but for that particular project, it was kind of black and white. It's worked so well. And then in our mouse model of Parkinson, this treatment really had a huge impact. So all the mice were protected against the model of Parkinson we had, and said, well, we need to bring this to a patient. And then I think it's really the way to go to treat diseases. And we know that in academic setting, it's almost impossible to bring those new treatment to the patients because of the cost of development of these treatments. It costs millions. And in an academic setting, as you know, we are limited in funding or from nonprofit funding, which is good to proof of principle, but not enough, obviously, to bring a treatment to the clinic.
So how did you make that leap?
That leap, well, they decided to create Cerebro and then try to attract investors to pay for the first steps of Cerebro. So all the patents have been made through Laval University, and Cerebro negotiated an exclusive licensing right. So that's make us having the intellectual property secure for the company. And then we looked for angel investment when we got more than a year ago, the first angel investment that make us progress towards this clinical translations. We're still in the progress where we still have some steps to bring to this technology to the clinics. And then we're actually rising right now to bring more funding to the company.
Okay. What raise are you looking to complete at the moment?
Yeah, so the money we're looking for will be to complete our preclinical evaluation.
Let's talk about the product that you're creating. Would you give me the lowdown on what that is? And please bear in mind, I don't have a science background, so you're going to have to dumb this down for me.
And please stop me if it becomes too complicated.
Trust me, I will.
So what we're developing is combining immunotherapy with gene therapy. So immunotherapy stands for using the immune system, and particular antibody. So we are developing antibodies that specifically recognize pathological proteins that are found in Parkinson patients. For example, the main constituent of what's called Lewy bodies, a hallmark of Parkinson's, it's aggregated alpha-synuclein. And we know, we have experimental data, not only from us, but from all different labs in the world, that these aggregates are toxic for the cells. And more importantly, these aggregates can spread the disease from cell to cells. It's getting externalized in extracellular space. The neighboring cell can internalize these aggregates, and then this serve as a seed to make other aggregates to form in the neighboring cells. And then with time, the disease progressed, and then the pathological aggregate just moved from one region to the other, and cells are really sensitive to these aggregates, and it's particular dopamine neurons in Parkinson. And when the cell die, then we have the motor symptoms apparition, the motor symptom development. So one way to block these pathological aggregates is to use antibodies. Antibodies are really good to target those aggregates and prevent the formation of new aggregates in the cells. But the problem is to bring the antibody to the brain. It's where we combine the gene therapy. So the gene therapy approach is we encode the miniature antibody into adeno-associated viral vector. And it's like a vaccine, basically. We inject those vector in the bloodstream, and these vector have been modified, have been engineered to be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. So the blood-brain barrier it's kind of a barrier that prevents any infection from the blood circulation to infect the brain. but it also prevents all the medicine to go in the brain, like antibodies.
Yep.
So in our case, this AAV vector, they can cross the blood-brain barrier. They specifically modified to cross it. And once they are in the brain, they enter the brain cells, and brain cells produce and secrete the mini antibody in the brain. So we use the brain as a bioreactor, and then they constantly produce and secrete the antibody for long term. And then we have an entire protection of the whole brain from these new aggregate to form. And this is single injection in an animal model, obviously, but in human, it will represent a single injection that will last for years. No need to go like multiple
Really?
injections. Yeah.
Hi, it's Jim. Don't go away. When we come back, Martin walks us through the research he and his team are doing and how they might be able to halt the progression of Parkinson's. Stay with us. I'm Jim Wilson, and you're listening to NGBiLab, Canada's Life Sciences Startup Podcast. Hi, it's Jim Wilson, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about the next Great Big Ideas Summit, which is coming this fall. If you are part of the Canadian life sciences community, NGBI is one of the key events you want to put in your calendar. The NGBI Summit is an independently organized, not-for-profit, national networking event that attracts innovators, investors, disruptors, academic entrepreneurs, industry suppliers, today's leaders, and startup founders from coast to coast who are quite likely many of tomorrow's industry leaders. The summit is an event that generates the kind of conversations that happen only when the right people are in the room. So if you are a member of the Canadian life sciences community, and frankly, even if you're not but you'd like to be, this event is for you, and we invite you to join us. For details on sponsorship and to purchase tickets, please go to nextgreatbigideas.com. Thanks so much. We look forward to having you join us. Let's get back to our conversation. Hey, welcome back. It's Jim Wilson, and my guest today is Martin Levesque, who is president and co-founder of Cerebro Therapeutics in Quebec City. This does not change the disease, but it halts progression. Is that correct?
It will not reverse the disease, but let's say we are at the first stage of the disease, it will stop it there. Whereas the other patients, they continue to have the new aggregates. Although they have medicine that will alleviate symptoms, the disease will continue to evolve. And at some point, 80% of the Parkinson patient will develop cognitive problems or other source of problem. And also the motor symptoms will be more and more affected. Whereas in our treatment, we can block it at the stage where the patients will receive the medications. So it's a one single treatment, and then we stop the disease progressions. We will not reverse it, but we'll stop the progression.
So you're doing a funding round at the moment. How much money is it you're looking for?
So we are looking for about, it might look big, but for a biotech company, it's not that big. It's 1.5 million to reach what's called the IND studies. So it's basically to bring our product to start the study to convince the regulatory agencies that our product is safe. And then for that, we want to test, because I talk about a viral vector and then an antibody, but there's some step to be done before to test that in human patients. And one of the steps is to humanize the antibody. It's something we already started with the first funding that we received. So humanize an antibody means that this antibody has been generated in a mouse. And then we make the sequence looking similar to a human antibody. So this is already done. And then the second steps is to have a viral vector that will work in a human brain. And the viral vector we use for our preclinical evaluation was working very well in mice, but there's an indication that it's not working in large primates like human. So we had to find an AAV vector that will do the exact same, but in human. And then we're actually evaluating it through the Frontier program of Dino Therapeutics. It's a company based in the US, and they especially developed AAV vector that can be modified to cross the blood-brain barrier. It works in the non-human primates, and they know which receptor on the barrier they target to make them cross the blood-brain barrier. Basically, they have AAV vector that will work in human. So the idea here is to combine these two, their capsid means their vector, plus our antibody fragment that is humanized and retest that in the non-human primate to be sure that we have nice biodistribution. We observe the same thing that we observe in mice with the mice version of our treatment.
I'm digesting this. This is so cool. How large is your team at the moment?
So far, plus the two co-founders, we have a former PhD student in my academic lab that joined Cerebro, and this is our operation manager. We have another postdoc that started recently, and then we have maybe 3 or 4 consultants that are not full-time for Cerebro, but are working as for example, our Brian Ford act as a CFO for Cerebro. Pierre Lemieux is more in the business development side. And we have Frédéric Padilla that's working part-time from the US. He's a specialist in gene therapy and he's helping us on the business development, but south of the border in the US.
And it sounds like you're going to be hiring in the not too distant future if things go
exactly.
Down the right path. So who are you looking for?
So, well, we will hire in different ways. One way will be we'll hire someone that will help us with the regulatory paperwork because we need to apply for the FDA, Health Canada, and other jurisdiction we want to do our clinical trial. We'll be hiring people directly in the lab to retest and reprocess all the non-human primates data. But we'll also give contract to CRO, for example, for all the toxicology studies that needs to be done in GLP manner is probably to be the case. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier, obviously, the company is focused on neurodegenerative diseases, and we're talking about Parkinson's. Is that focus on Parkinson's exclusive, or are there other diseases that you're hoping to assist with?
Yeah. So at Cerebro, we have the same strategy, but for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. We have an antibody that is encoded. It's going to be the same viral vector, but encoding a different antibody for the different disease. Because what is in common in neurodegenerative diseases is they all have protein aggregates, but they are not the same aggregates depending on the disease. So for Parkinson, the main aggregates are made of alpha-synuclein. For amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, the main aggregate are made from a protein called TDP-43. And for Alzheimer, there are 2 main proteins, protein tau and protein beta-amyloid. And for all of these diseases, we're actually developing antibody that will target these different proteins. But the most advanced so far, so we have for Parkinson, the anti-synuclein antibody. This is our lead asset. And we also have the same level of development. We have the TDP-43 antibody for ALS.
You mentioned again earlier that you're working with the Michael J. Fox Foundation. How did you get on their radar?
We apply for funding. They are really generous and also eager to seek new treatment. And we proposed this approach. They liked it. And then they gave us the funding to do all the preclinical evaluation. It is where we went into their radar, and they also help us to do the next steps. But this private foundation, at some point they have to let you fly with your own wings, but they give us a very good push at the beginning to develop all this new treatment.
You're based in Quebec City, and for those who may not know, it has a vibrant life sciences community, and I'd appreciate you telling us a bit about it.
Yeah, so Quebec, it's definitely a good hub in bioscience. We have not only in bioscience, but also all these related centers. We have at Cerebro Brain Research Center, the Neurophotonic Center. They basically use lights and lasers to develop new system to do biomedical research. So we have all these new spin-off companies that actually are developing, I have in mind Blake Photonic. They develop microscopes for health science. There are custom-made microscopes. They have different modalities. We have different companies like Feldan that have been quite good in the recent years. And then Medicago, that we were developing a vaccine throughout tobacco leaves. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, that have been tough for them. But yeah, we have very good ecosystems, and I think it's a good hub to do that.
Yeah, well, and Quebec as a whole has a strong history in life sciences and great organizations like Bio-Quebec, which is headed up by Benoit LaRose, who's doing a great job. I think Quebec and Ontario and British Columbia, which are the top tier provinces, arguably the top 3, and there's a greater sense of cooperation going on in the community now that I don't think we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really good. I totally agree. And we are lucky that because we've been supported by many organizations. I mentioned Capital Bioscience that were helping us. giving us coaching. Well, we were also incubated in the Quebec side through the CQIB and Bio-Quebec, and then they are helping us. And then we have all this incentive for startups that were being held by both Ontario and Quebec. But, sometimes the problem becomes the communication. So I was in Ontario in the Obio Summit, and then I was learning about Quebec plan to help businesses. So I learned it from Ontario.
Well, that's why we go to these conferences.
Exactly.
Hi, it's Jim Wilson. When we come back, Martin and I talk about what it was like to make the leap from academic researcher to startup founder and the advice he would give to anyone thinking about following the same path. Stay tuned. I'm Jim Wilson, and you're listening to NGBiLab. Listeners of the NGBI podcasts know the goal of this podcast, NGBiLab, is to shine a light on up-and-coming startups in Canadian life sciences and the people and stories behind them. If you like what we're doing, we have a small favor to ask. Please tell your friends about us and promote us on social. You can use the hashtags NGBiLab, NGBI Podcasts, and NGBI Summit. We appreciate your support and help in getting the word out about what we're doing. On that note, if you are a startup founder who is working on one of the next great big ideas in Canadian life sciences, please let us know what you're doing. My contact information is at the end of today's show, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for listening. Let's get back to our conversation. Hey, welcome back. It's Jim Wilson, and I'm speaking with Martin Levesque of Cerebro Therapeutics and learning about the research they're doing to treat neurodegenerative diseases. So is this the first kick at the entrepreneurial can for you?
Yeah, this first time I decided to start a business, yes.
And what has that journey been like so far?
I think it's super exciting. The idea that our research that we do in the academic lab can be translated and help people and then potentially be the first treatment for this very terrible disease that is made in Quebec or made in Canada. It's absolutely thrilling to just think about it. And hopefully we'll have the support from the Canadian ecosystem to continue our activities towards that goal.
So you're preclinical at the moment.
So yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that we're finalizing our preclinical.
Okay. And you're looking at another funding round. And from a business standpoint, there's got to be a lot of competition in this sector.
Yes, definitely. So I can give you a brief overview of the landscape. So there's obviously a lot of companies like big pharma that are actively working in trying to develop this treatment or similar treatment. So far, we have big pharma that develop the full antibody against synuclein, for example, or tau, different protein aggregates, but they've been giving those antibodies through repetitive injection through the bloodstream. So patient has to go in the clinic every 3 weeks, every month, to receive intravenous injection of full antibodies. And the clinical trial so far, they failed to meet their primary endpoints. From our perspective, it's mostly because they have been successful enough to have a nice biodistribution that we do in the brain with our gene therapy approach. So if we compare to those treatments, our approach allows a constant production of the antibody fragments with the mini antibodies in the brain, whereas in their clinical trial, they were injecting antibodies, let's say, every month. It's efficient. It lasts in the blood circulation for maybe a week or two, and then it gets eliminated. So we have a period where potentially the brain was not protected. Only 0.1, also that's a main limiting factor, only 0.1% of the antibody that we inject in the blood circulation that actually reach the brain. The rest is just stays outside the brain. So this is one of the reasons we think these clinical trials failed. There's also other small molecules that have been developed to prevent aggregations. That can be also very promising, but again, they require frequent injections every 3 weeks. I don't know the stability of the small compounds that are actually being developed, but as far as I know, there's nothing in the clinic yet, or even in the clinical trial. In our hands, when we try to break out the small aggregates, we actually do that to generate more diseases because small aggregates seed more the disease than the big one. So I'm a bit suspicious. I would like to see the data to compare, but I think the best approach is still the mini antibody. That's the way we design it. And as for the landscape of the competition, we have a lot of companies that actually treat symptoms. They will have different ways of administrating levodopa, which is the current medication for Parkinson that basically make the life better for the patients. But we know that it doesn't last for long. And with time, patients develop severe side effects. So sometimes they are trying to also have drug that will modulate the side effects.
So your differentiating factor is you're treating the cause, you're not treating the symptom.
Exactly. That's the important point.
So where will the company be in 2 years?
Well, according to our plan, in 2 years, 2028, we should be about to start a clinical trial, the first in human clinical trial. So during the next 2 years, we will do our toxicology studies, our IND enabling studies, and then to have all the paperwork to have a go from health authorities to start our clinical trials. And we will probably 2 years and a half, we'll be enrolling our first patients for our gene therapy.
And 5 years from now?
Well, hopefully the treatment will be as successful as in our animal models. And 5 years from now, we might have a big news in all across the world saying that Canadian company top Parkinson's and hopefully ALS.
Fabulous. So is there any advice you would give to listeners who might be contemplating following your entrepreneurial journey? If you could take a step back and have a redo, what would you tell yourself?
It's hard to say. So far, it went pretty well.
Well, good.
Well, I haven't been trained in business at all. So business is something that went after. I've mostly been trained as an academic lab in the science part. So I think the science is really strong in our side, and we're really confident about the science part. For the business part too, so we have to be supported by people. And then we had the chance to have very good people that had experience to help us, looking for help, looking for when we had needs, they orient towards the best person to do the next steps. So that was for the business part.
I'm wondering if there's any mentors who you've turned to for advice.
Well, yeah, so we had Pierre Lemieux that was initially from the start with us. Pierre has been very successful in the past in building a biotech company, selling those companies to make them fly by themselves. And then he started new ones. And then he has experience, and then he's helping us in all the next steps for the business development. So I have also the chance of having Frédéric Padilla, which is based in the US, is actually working for part-time, most of his time for a non-profit organization called the Focus Ultrasound Foundation. It's also a gene therapy foundation. They basically use the Focus Ultrasound to open the blood-brain barrier locally. So it's working for them, but it's also working part-time for Cerebro, helping in this area, in the gene therapy area, in the development of Cerebro in the US. Yeah, so it was as part of the mentorship. Where we have, in business is so many aspects that we need expert. As the general mentor was Pierre, but and more example, when we generated SAFE for investors, that the first angel investors, we didn't know how to craft those safes and then what was the best way of doing it. And it was good for the company, also good for the investors. But we have Brian Ford, that has been introduced through with Pierre Lemieux and help us to have package all this safe agreement. And Brian has a lot of experience also in all this business development. So he's acting as a part-time CFO for us. So
lots of people are stepping up to help, which is great to hear. What 2 things would you like listeners of this conversation to take away? 2 things.
Well, see if there's any patients that are affected by neurodegenerative diseases, I wish to give them some hope. And I think there's good treatment that's are coming up for them. And then we're actually totally dedicated to have this new treatment come out for them. As potential investors, please contact us if any of this resonate to you. It can be a single persons, an angel investor, more experienced VCs. So we're actually rising. And then how it is, money is basically what will accelerate the development of this treatment towards the clinic. So I would say anyone is interested to help us to bring this treatment to the patients, please be in touch with us, and then we'll be super happy to team up.
2 questions follow up. Is there a minimum investment you're looking for? And are you looking for patients to volunteer for clinical trial at some point?
At some point, not exactly at the moment. I said probably in 2 years, we'll start our first clinical trial. That's for the patients. That's the minimum investment. So we said it because it's sometimes it can be complicated to file all the paperwork. So the minimum so far we collected, it was 50,000 investment minimum. But any potential help will be welcome.
Right. Okay. So anyone who is interested, we will have your contact information at the end of the show. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and talk about your company. This is so cool. And congratulations on how far you've come. And I'm so excited for the direction you're heading.
Thank you so much for letting me talk to your platform. It was my pleasure to discuss with you today.
That was Martin Levesque, who is president and co-founder of Cerebro Therapeutics in Quebec City. If you'd like to learn more about the company and the research they're doing, please go to cerebrotx.com. That's CEREBROTX. You can follow Martin on social at Martin-Levesque, and you can follow us at NGBI Podcasts. If you'd like to learn about this podcast or any of our other shows, please visit nextgreatbigideas.com. If you'd like to find out what I do when I'm not hosting podcasts, please visit jim-wilson.ca. You can find more information about my team at laboccupier.com, and if you're interested in following me on social, I am at laboccupier. This episode of NGBiLab was researched by Xenia Pinto and edited by No Limit Marketing. We always appreciate hearing from our listeners, so if you would like to get in touch, please send us an email. My address is jwilson@leonard, that's LENNARD.com. I'm Jim Wilson, and you've been listening to NGBiLab, Canada's Life Sciences Startup Podcast. Thanks so much. See you next time.